Do you believe in unidentified aerial phenomenon, secret black projects, little grey men? We're here to talk about it. This is Aliens and Stuff. Hello, welcome to Aliens and Stuff. This is episode 3, and today we're going to talk about the Betty and Barney Hill Abduction of 1961. Now, boys, have you heard of this before?
Yes, we have.
I think before you did your research, have you heard of it before?
Yeah, I had actually, because this is one of the first ever abduction stories, really, that's come out.
Absolutely.
I'd say the first big abduction case.
First big abduction case. Now, do you think, before we start, what was your first impression on it? Do you think normal, paranormal, or unexplained?
Normal.
I'm gonna go normal.
Oh, for what I know, I'm going to bring it up later, I think paranormal.
Okay. Well, Spence, you're the fact-checking man.
Well, I
Give us a
decided,
little rundown.
instead of boring the pants off you, I've got a lovely, a lovely video from ITV's This Morning, which is actually the niece.
Philip?
Yeah, it's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, Kathleen Marden, explaining the ins and outs.
Pull it up and have a look.
So yeah, let's have a go.
Betty had a vacation from her job as a social worker for the state of New Hampshire. Barney worked for the post office. At that time, they had never read a book on the topic. They were driving home through the White Mountains of New Hampshire on September 19, 1961. They had a close encounter with a UFO. Barney saw figures standing behind the windows on this craft. They were dressed in black, shiny uniforms. The car started to vibrate. She and Barney heard a series of buzzing sounds striking the trunk of the car, and suddenly they found themselves in a new location.
Spooky.
It's incredibly spooky. What I find really interesting about Betty and Barney Hill, okay, is that you think about history here. 1961 this occurred. Interracial couple, very, very rare in America at that time, becoming more normal. Today, this is extremely normal, and so it should be, but there was obviously a lot of issues in America at that time in and around racism. These people came out and said, we've been abducted by aliens. One of the first people to ever do that. Yeah. Why would they draw attention to themselves being the couple that they were racially if they didn't want to open themselves to
the thing is, I think, race aside, I don't think that makes any difference, purely because they actually both had like upstanding, normal jobs. They were both active in their communities, and whether you think that's rare at the time for them or what have you is a different thing. But that, you know, they were not like, you know, they weren't excluded in any way from their community or anything like that. It's not like that would be a reason to make up anything. If anything, it would be detrimental to them to fabricate a story like this.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But I think what we're doing here is we're mixing up the issue in terms of you're saying either they made it up or they didn't make it up. But it may well be that it didn't happen in the way that they said it did, but something else happened, and maybe they mistook some things, or there's a lot of different angles. But
I agree.
How did it happen? How did the event happen, Spence?
Okay, so they were actually on the way back from a vacation at Niagara Falls, as you saw in the video. After returning home after this experience with the car, they lost time, they felt dulled, they had damage to clothing, they had scuffed shoes, they were exhibiting abnormal behaviour, which they identified themselves. Yeah. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on.
Did they just to interject, did they remember where did they stop remembering?
So on their way back during the drive, they had a period of lost time. Yeah. Okay, so the journey should have taken them, I think, 4 hours, and it ended up taking them 7 hours, which was strange in itself.
3 hours extra.
But at the same time, that's anecdotal. Yeah, so of course. No evidence of this. It's just an anecdotal comment. That being said, from the lost memory afterwards, Betty started experiencing horrific nightmares, and she had 5 in total. And the nightmares were her and Barney being led into the woods by sort of short, strange, otherworldly beings. Yeah. Barney didn't have any nightmares, but he felt like something was being blocked off.
He remembers getting out of his car, looking through his binoculars.
Yes, he does.
And seeing people through the window, beings through a window of a
Did he
craft.
remember that?
Wow.
Did he remember that and then there's lost time? Or is that
He
a
remembered
memory after the event?
He remembered that, then there was lost time.
Right, so he remembered, that's what I was trying to get
He
to. So
remembered
he
that.
remembers getting out of the car and he remembers there being a light
Yeah.
and something chasing their vehicle.
Yeah.
He remembers that, then there's missing time.
Then there's missing time.
Right.
Then they got home, exhibited strange behaviour, and then she started having nightmares in what seems to be a UFO abduction from the story. Okay, so she remembers them being led to the craft, led inside, separated, to which the aliens then began conducting experiments on her. So she remembers being. Well, actually, the actual minutiae of this comes out later during hypnosis.
Yeah, so this is through a hypnosis thing. She doesn't remember this until way after the event, after going under hypnosis.
Years after, really, isn't it?
Well,
it was a few years.
Yeah, it was a few years later.
Yeah.
Have you got, before we get onto the hypnosis side, have you got any other background?
Well, so what I wanted to go into really was that, so within these dreams, I've actually got a bit more information on this.
Start on the dreams.
So within these dreams, she remembers having a needle pushed into her stomach to test her nervous system.
Yeah.
She remembers a bright light being shined on her, hair, nail and skin samples being taken, and the aliens speaking in imperfect English. And also that their leader showed her a star map, which I believe we've got an image of.
Have we?
And I'll come back to this in a bit more detail later. But this is.
She didn't draw that.
She didn't draw that, no. But that was created from what she recalled.
Okay.
And she remembered that she was given a book by the leader of these beings, but the other beings decided that the book needed to be taken away, and she needed to have the memory erased. That's the dream that she went through.
Well, what I find interesting as well, so Barney, before obviously they got abducted, he remembers getting out of the car, he remembers looking through the binoculars. He commented saying, and I find this really, really interesting actually, he remembers seeing beings wearing little hats.
Yeah, caps.
Right? During hypnosis, that came up again, didn't it?
It did, yes. It did.
A
But,
hat. They're wearing a hat. I've never heard of an alien wearing a hat. I mean, look at Andre, he's not wearing a hat.
yeah, but we'll come back to this.
yeah, all
We'll
right.
come back to this during hypnosis, okay?
Fair enough.
So, I mean, afterwards, they did withhold some details and contact Pease Air Force Base, who said that they must have mistaken the planet Jupiter for some sort of aircraft. Doesn't explain the other details.
Jupiter?
But yes, planet
That's
Jupiter.
nonsense.
Now, the niece, Kathleen, who we saw in the video earlier, she claims that the Air Force picked up something on their radar. Now, for love nor money, I could not find any documented evidence of this whatsoever.
No, it's speculative.
I was the same on that.
I
It's
couldn't
like-
find anything
So
about
I
that.
don't feel like we can actually take that into account
No.
as part of it,
No.
because there's no evidence. I even went on Google Books. That's how into this.
You
I
went
got.
really into that, Spencer. Fair play to you.
However, later on, they did end up getting in contact with a retired Marine Corps major who had an interest in hypnosis that they met at their local church, and he put them in contact with another organisation, the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, where they basically had a conversation and got put in touch with a hypnotist.
Okay.
But before we get onto the hypnotist thing, I know that one big sticking point for you, Mike, was the pink dress.
I found this incredibly interesting because, again, we're going to have a niece talk about it in a moment, but just to give a bit of context, they obviously came home from this abduction, they lost a lot of time, they actually felt quite normal about everything for a while, and then they got undressed, she took her dress off, hung it back up in the wardrobe, as you would when you get home to go to bed, and then obviously woke up and kind of felt all weird about it. She decided to look at the dress. It was very much a blue colour before with a pattern on
Blue
it.
flowery, wouldn't it?
And then when she looked at the dress the next time, it had this almost pink powdery residue all over it. It almost changed the colour of the dress slightly. And she found that really bizarre. She hung it on the line weirdly as well, and all this powder came off it in the wind. And we've got a clip, obviously, of her niece talking about that, so if we have a look at that a moment.
It has been analyzed in at least 5 scientific laboratories to date, and the finding is anomalous. They have found proteins on the dress, they have found oils on the dress, they know that they did not belong to Betty. The dress is most deeply saturated with the pink substance.
Right. Okay.
So they don't know what that pink substance is. 5 different ones have tested it. They've obviously found proteins and things like that we know about, but they don't know all of it.
Okay, so let me just interject here with this. So this pink dress, okay.
Yeah.
I get that from a narrative standpoint, it sounds a bit weird and a bit creepy, right? She says about 5 different tests being done on it. I could not find any conclusive results on those tests.
No, right? I couldn't find any results.
Okay, so they did find proteins and things on it. During the interview, she said they could not determine, they were all naturally occurring. They couldn't find anything on there that was otherworldly. Now you've got to take into account, okay, yes, you know, you're saying, oh, she put it in the closet and pulled it out and there's a pink powder. So after she hung it outside, she also then threw it away and then retrieved it again. Okay, so they're saying, oh, they found all these proteins and they didn't belong to Betty. Well, if she's taken it home, hung it in a wardrobe, put it on the line, threw it in the trash, retrieved it from the trash, washed it again, put it in the wardrobe.
How surely they find like baked beans on it or something then? That's my point. You know, they still. That's
what relevance does that have?
Well,
I'm just saying that it doesn't have. It doesn't have any foreign materials on it. That's my point.
If this was a crime scene, right? Okay. If this was a crime scene and you were talking evidence, right? And let's say there was you know, you chucked your shirt away and this, that, and the other. And I mean, that's then tampered with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right. it's.
So to go against your argument,
there was nothing. It's been into 5 different laboratories.
They have not found anything extraterrestrial.
All they're saying is we don't know what the pink powder is. We don't actually seem that abnormal.
But okay, how do you explain then this? This is going to hit you. How was it cut down by the zipper and around the hem?
Zipper's frayed.
If you look at the picture, it was in the video. It wasn't frayed. It was cut. There's an incision. It wasn't ripped.
She got a pair of scissors at home.
She might have done, but why?
Does that add to it a little bit?
Well, what I would say is,
as to your story,
they, by their own admission, were acting very, very strange when they got home.
What? So they cut it when they were feeling strange?
Well, they were acting abnormally and they had lost time. So if they're acting extremely abnormally and they've lost time, who's to say that they didn't cut it?
I get exactly what you mean.
Was that an alien?
That could have been an alien.
It's Betty and Barney Hill's
ultimately, I don't believe that she cut the dress. I honestly don't. What motivation have they got as a couple in the era they were in to fake something like this?
Okay, but my...
And using a dress to do
Okay,
it.
so how reliable a witness, right? If you've got a witness that says, I was acting really abnormally and strangely and doing strange things, and I've got periods of lost time, how is that a reliable witness to say I didn't cut the dress?
Yeah.
But if they're faking it, why would they make themselves an unreliable witness?
Well, they don't. That's the thing, though. Is do they know that they've done it? You're coming from the argument of, okay, either it really happened or they made it all up. Well, it could be somewhere in between. Something could have happened, and they could have assumed. We don't know. They, by their own admission, were acting strangely.
They can't remember,
and they can't.
They have 2 hours of lost time. Now, that 2 hours of lost time where they travelled distance or whatever else and they don't know what they were doing.
And you've got a theory about this with food, don't you?
Well, so apparently they stopped on their journey. They stopped and had a bit of cake, a bit of coffee, and they both ate the same thing.
As you
allegedly,
do. Yeah.
Right, as you do.
Yeah.
Right. And
we often stop for cake.
And what somebody did turn around and say is, what if it was some type of food poisoning, like salmonella, that allegedly can make you hallucinate? You know, that can make you, have an effect on your body, have an effect on your mind. I don't know enough detail of what it will actually physically do to you, but obviously make you ill. And they were acting strange, didn't feel right for days afterwards. Maybe it was just a really unusual case of I've had a dodgy bit of cake, and actually,
I don't believe that.
All right, it's just an idea.
I don't believe that.
Okay, so
I've never sat there.
No, you don't believe in food poisoning, but you believe they were abducted by aliens.
I don't believe that necessarily, but I don't also think it's because of food poisoning. When have you ever sat there and you've had food poisoning?
I haven't had salmonella. I've had a bad curry.
I've seen you have food poisoning. This is the point. Have you ever sat there and gone, it's aliens?
Hey, Mike, have you ever been out?
That's what they've done.
Because I remember what I ate. I haven't lost any time.
Hey, Mike, have you ever been out for a night out, right, not remembered doing something, and then the next morning waking up and going, God, did I do that?
I remember for a fact that you've done that several times in your life.
Okay, now salmonella can cause
100%.
a similar condition.
I've been there.
Okay.
I had to remind you of what you did.
All right. Okay. Fine.
Look,
yeah. I admit that.
Let's not rib Mike too hard on this one, all right?
I'll admit that. I have forgotten nights out. Okay.
Okay.
I think we all have.
Now, bringing it back, we were talking about hypnosis earlier on, okay? And when they went under, Barney did come up with the same things under hypnosis that Betty had discussed, okay?
Were they done separately?
Yes.
They were done separately, but were they done like after one another, or was it like on a different day? So she was going back and say, "Oh, this is what I experienced."
So they were hypnotized years later. Okay? Years later, but separately.
It was about 6 years later, wasn't it?
Separately,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it was about 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so years and years and years later. Now here's one for you. When they were under hypnosis, despite the fact that Barney was repeating a lot of the things that Betty was saying, the person who was hypnotizing them, Mr. Simon, he said the extraterrestrial hypothesis was impossible. Okay. And afterwards, he said that what Barney was saying was a fantasy inspired by the dreams that Betty had been talking about for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay?
But also,
So that kind of takes away the legitimacy of them having matching stories, because she's been telling him this for 3 years. So obviously that's
also with the hypnosis side of things, if you're under hypnosis, you can be easily led by the person who was doing the hypnosis.
Or from previous
but what I'm saying is the same person hypnotized them.
Yeah.
So in the way that they did it, and given the dream sharing, it's probably not outside of the realms of actually, that's why it's probably quite similar. And it wasn't exactly the same.
I wouldn't say that the whoever hypnotized them was leading them though, because the hypnotist didn't believe it. He said before, impossible, and then afterwards he said, I don't think that's the case. I don't think it happened. He said it was a psychological aberration, like a shared fantasy that they experienced.
Going back to your food poisoning theory, right?
You're not going to let us go, you?
No, I'm not. I'm going back to it because it's making me think, okay? Food poisoning theory acting a bit weird. Apparently, Barney, as soon as he got through the door, the first thing he did was take all his clothes off, go into the bathroom and examine his own genitals.
Yeah. Who hasn't done that?
After a night
Normal,
out.
paranormal, or undecided about his genitals. That's kind of what he was doing there. But why would you do that?
Well, this is my whole crux of my argument against the dress thing. Is you're going, yeah, but why would they cut their own dress up? And now you're going, yeah, but why would they take all their clothes off and examine their genitals? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you got, I'm not going to go into that conversation.
So the third thing that I was going to come on to, so you talk about the stories matching up. Well, obviously they're going to match up under hypnosis if one person's been banging on for 3 years and then the other one gets hypnotized. That's going to implant that idea.
Yeah, you can take that out.
People talk about the dress, but then you've got two witnesses, who were both saying, "Oh, we've been acting really strange and we've got lost time, but I didn't cut that dress." Well, how do you know that? The third thing, which a lot of people hinge on, is the star map. So we brought up an image of it earlier. I don't know if we can get that up again.
Let's see if we can bring that up.
Yep. Brilliant. So Marjorie Fish, who was an elementary school teacher and amateur astronomer, studied the description that Betty gave about the star system, which she experienced in her dream, okay?
Right.
And came to the conclusion that it was the double star system of Zeta Reticuli that she was talking about. And this was corroborated with a UFO expert and amateur astronomer, Mr. Webb. However, the editor of Astronomy magazine, a Mr. Dickinson, does not endorse those conclusions. And Carl Sagan argued on an episode of Cosmos in 1980 that the star map that was drawn up was little more than a random alignment of chance points, and demonstrated that with examples. So after that, in the 90s, Marjorie Fish, who came up with it, actually rejected her own hypothesis in a public statement. Yeah. So the thing that a lot of people hinge on, the star map, doesn't mean anything.
To be fair, if I drew a load of dots and lines, I'm pretty sure there's going to be something that corresponds, something similar somewhere in the sky. The possibilities are endless.
They looked at it from all angles and found something that fit.
I suppose, think about it this way. You could say, oh, well, if you're for it and you want to believe what Betty was saying, you could say, well, she wasn't an amateur astronomer. She had, her professional life, had no astronomy knowledge in it whatsoever. And then she drew a star map. Wow, that's incredibly credible. And obviously back in 1961, and then the years following that, they didn't have Google. You just go there and go, we Googled that image, let's be honest. But we found it quite easily. She couldn't really do that in 1961, but she could have got a book and actually looked it up and then tried replicating
Yeah.
it itself.
Potentially, but I'm more on sort of Tom's leading with this, which is if you draw a lot of points on a piece of paper and draw lines between them, if you're studying space in a three-dimensional spectrum, eventually you're going to find that configuration.
It's all about motivation. At the end of the day, if they were trying to fake it, so there's three options. They either tried faking it, it was real, or obviously something else happened which made them think that this happened. If they were trying to fake it, she would just go and look it up and then try and draw it and replicate it. You wouldn't just make it up and hope for the best if you were trying to...
I'm going to throw something in here.
Go on.
Right. So this is the conflicting bit for me, right?
Okay.
Is if we take it back to the actual abduction bit, what they
Okay.
described,
Yeah.
right? They do describe grey aliens, which back then weren't massively pop culture, but, right? And that's the bit which people report nowadays. If somebody asked you to draw an alien, you'd paint Andre Gray.
Yeah, you
right?
would,
And
yeah.
that would be it, right?
Andre's a faker, really.
Absolutely, he's different
He's a
race, he's
blow-up.
green. But there was a program called Outer Limits, right?
There was.
Which was aired 12 days before Barney went under hypnosis.
What, for the first time?
Yep, for the first time.
And
Now,
what
bearing
colour
in
were the
mind the
aliens?
limited amount of TV channels back then, which had space beings who were little grey men.
Were they wearing hats?
I don't think they were wearing hats. But
Hold up, I can clear this up for you. The hats thing was their initial description of the aliens. Under hypnosis, they described them differently,
Yeah.
which were
Which
looking
were
like
like-
alien greys.
Which
Okay.
were like Alien Greys, which featured in the program Outer Limits, which was first aired 12 days before they went under hypnotic regression, right? So before they went under hypnosis. Now, maybe they didn't see it. Even if they did, right? Are they that far into the story that they're just going to turn around and say that they didn't anyway?
But also, I mean, you know, we are taking into account, like you said, limited channels, limited amounts of communication. Subconsciously, they could have flicked by an advert in a newspaper with a screenshot
Absolutely,
or a
of saying, "Oh, this is
poster or-
advertised," you watch it or whatever.
1960s, Don Draper could have come up with it. You
It's
never
true,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's so many different webs and
Okay, so wrapping it up, the star map is nonsense, the dress is nonsense, the story is nonsense, normal, paranormal, undecided, normal.
What did you say at the beginning? You said normal, didn't you? Or you said undecided?
No, I said normal.
You said normal.
Yeah.
You know what? I said paranormal at the beginning. I'm actually going to change my I'm going to change my opinion. I'm going to say it's normal as well because I do think that it's nonsense.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
Okay, so normal.
it's definitely normal. I think they believed it happened to them. I think they believed it happened. I'm not turning around and saying they're lying. I'm not turning around and saying that they've just come out of this for a bit of PR or whatever. I think they generally believe that it happened to them.
But it's
That's-
normal.
But it didn't happen.
That's 2 for 2. That's
We've
2
agreed.
shows running.
I'm
We've all
really
agreed.
sorry.
I
Usually I
can't
like
believe it.
I know.
So, guys,
believe it.
tell us in the comments what you think. Is it normal, paranormal, or are you just undecided? Is there any other evidence you want to bring to the table? We'll discuss it in one of the future shows if we can be bothered. But tune in. We'll catch up again for episode 4.
Please like and subscribe and hit the bell notification icon.
Do that.
Absolutely.
Cheers.